So, welcome back, everyone. I want to talk to you today about the second half of February. And here we are, just acknowledging that the sun is moving into Pisces here on the 19th. And so, as it's doing that, the sun is also moving into the gate 55. Gate 55 is on the emotional solar plexus. It is emotional energy. It is known as abundance in the I Ching, or spirit in traditional human design, or faith in quantum human design. And so this is a really beautiful energy that helps us to understand that we have what we need when we need to have it. It's called abundance in the I Ching. And this is not an abundance of accumulation. Okay, it's not an abundance of hoarding or an abundance of having more and more and more and more. It's an abundance of recognizing that as a member of the living world, that we always have what we need when we need to have it. Now, human beings have kind of shifted our relationship to the living world, and in fact have shifted a lot of the ways that the living world is relating to itself, right? With all of the different kinds of interventions that we as a humanity have done with the living world. But at the core, right? At the core, the living world provides us with everything that we need. And part of our role is to accept it, to believe it, to honor it, and to also steward it. And this is part of where we're at here as a species, human beings, right? With our living world, which is, will we start better stewarding our living world so that we do, in fact, always have what we need when we need to have it? So there is a faith that's involved in this, right? There's a faith. And the 55 is in the knowing circuit. And the knowing circuit is individual circuitry. And so it is part of the evolutionary impulse of humanity that runs through the chart. And so this is part of our evolutionary process, is to step into this faith that we will have what we need when we need to have it, that we do live in an abundant, spiritually infused world, and that we are wanting to make this more and more real for us in our everyday lives, right? And that when we can tap into what's really going on in the living world, it's much easier for us to do that. If you take a look at this image, this is just the sun and the earth activations. I released this particular image at the beginning of the month so that when you watch my February report, you can see where the sun and the earth are lighting up the gates. And you can see in this particular image that there's a predominance of energy around the emotional solar plexus. And if you were to add in the other planets that are activating gates this month, actually every single one of the gates of the emotional solar plexus would be lit up this month. So what I want to say to you is, really be aware there's a lot of emotional energy. So you want to watch out for your own emotional reactivity. You want to watch out for the emotional reactivity of others. As we lean into that gate 55, we can feel it as emotional. And what you want to do is have a sense of gratitude, first of all, right? That we always have what we need when we need to have it. Have that with gratitude, but also with joy, right? And with excitement and anticipation, and even elation, right? That here we are, we have what we need when we need to have it. And we can have faith that spirit, it has our back, and that we will be guided in order to receive the things that we need. So you want to get emotionally involved with that, right? If you can, emotionally involved in a positive way, because if you're living in too much scarcity, especially in your mindset, right? The scarcity is largely a mindset. I mean, it's true. Sometimes we don't have everything that we want. Very often we don't have everything that we want. But if we look, we have what we need. But we sometimes, because there is in Western culture this idea that there isn't enough for everyone, and we tend to kind of grasp and try and get more and more and more for ourselves, which does lead to hoarding, right? So we want to not go that route. That's really kind of the shadow or the disempowered aspect of the 55. Instead, we want to take a hold of this emotional energy and raise our frequency with it, and focusing on what it is that we truly want to be bringing into our lives. And so the gate 55 also is a particularly significant gate as we move into the solar plexus mutation and as we move into the prophecy of 2027. I'm not not going to go into that in a lot of depth here today, but just know that that 55 is going to become increasingly significant for all of us as we move forward through time. And so we want to be really cultivating inside of ourselves this deep faith that we have what we need when we need to have it, and that we can get emotionally involved in that as we do so. I want to take a note here of what's happening with Mars. Now, Mars is in the gate 53 and is in the gate 53 for a really long period of time for Mars. Mars usually is only somewhere for about 3 weeks, but you can see here, Mars is here for all of February and most of March, right? So it's a much longer transit in one gate. And that's partly because Mars has been retrograde and Mars has been out of bounds, if it's an astrological term, which means it's kind of off his orbit even. So that makes it even longer. And this gate 53 is the gate of starting things. And so here, Mars is about to station direct on February 24th. So that's just coming up in a few days. And what happens when a planet is going to move from being retrograde to moving direct is it slows down, right? And then it stations direct. And sometimes it really hangs out there for a while. Mars is like going to hang out here for a little bit and then turns around and starts going direct. So one way that you might think about this is Mars has been retrograde, kind of looking in the gate 53 going, what have we started? Right? What have we started? What haven't we started? What do we need to start? Let's go back over what we've already started so we can think about what then we want to start. So Mars, let's remember, is the god of war in the sort of more traditional astrology. But Mars in human design, in his most awakened expression, is the spiritual warrior. Because after all, what we want to be able to do is evolve the parts of us that are kind of caught in the power over the conflict energy, which unfortunately is pretty strong on the planet right now. So we want to find a way to actually stand in the power of our convictions, of our point of view, of our values, of how we want to be treating ourselves, treating each other, treating the living world, right? All of those things. We want to be really looking at that and be leaning into, from my point of view, how can we have a more equitable world, a more compassionate world, one where we really do feel like there is enough for everyone and we always have what I need, which is that gate 55. So Mars is here saying, okay, what are we starting? And he's been going back and saying, okay, well, we started some stuff. Let's take a look at that. And now he's going to sit there on the 24th and say, all right, this is potent energy. Mars is in Cancer. And Mars in Cancer can be emotionally reactive. Now, remember what I was just showing you about all of those gates and the emotional solar plexus. So the 53 is not on the emotional solar plexus, but we already have a lot of emotional energy. And Mars in Cancer can go in that reactive way, which can either be disempowered or power over, right? That kind of emotional reaction. Or it can be really empathetic, really compassionate. And if we can imagine this kind of distorted masculine, if you will, or toxic masculinity, which the god of war can be, right? That's a really toxic, patriarchal, I'm going to be better than everybody. I'm going to have more power than everybody. I'm going to have more toys and more goodies and more gear than everybody, that kind of thing, which we are seeing lit out there on the world stage, right? Or it can be like, I am going to stand for the highest possible spiritual principles that is possible for me to reach. And that is part of what Mars can enable us to do. And Mars, remember, is agency, right? It's agency. So you may have felt a little bit like it was hard to get things going over these last few weeks while Mars has been retrograde. But now Mars is going to station direct, it's going to turn around, it's going to go forward. And so you might feel after that 24th, right, that there's this more energy coming in behind you with when you want to start things, you want to get things going, which totally makes sense in terms of certainly where we are here in the Northern Hemisphere is that we're coming out of Imbolc, right? And we're starting to head towards the spring equinox. So there's a lot of energy that is moving forward. The days are getting longer. The sun's up earlier, it sets later. And so there is here in the Northern Hemisphere, this sense that things are starting, like where there's things that are blooming outside and all of that. And let's just remember that Mars also rules Aries, which is where the spring equinox is. So you can see how this is all kind of layering on top of it, right? Take a look at what's going to start happening, after that 24th, and see if you start to get an extra surge of energy to get started with some things that you maybe got started but then got slowed down, or maybe you were thinking of starting and then you were like, oh, maybe it's not the right time. So just see if that starts to arise for you. And then at the end of the month on the 27th, depending on where you are in the world, here in California, it's on the 27th. And if you're in Europe, it could be on the 28th, early in the morning. So we have the new moon in Pisces in the gate 37. So the 37 is known as friendship in traditional human design or peace in quantum human design. And the 37 is part of the channel of the bargain or the channel of administration. Its mate is the 40, and they are what Richard Rudd and the Gene Keys would call programming partners. So they do create a full channel. This is one of the few times that the sun and the earth create a full channel. It also happens with the 3420, and then it happens with the 4037, and I actually can't think of another one. So it happens at least 4 times a year, but I don't think it's happening much more than that. So the 37 is really ushering in peace, right? The sun's going to move in, and then here's the new moon. And just remember that the sun and the moon are always in the same gate at the new moon. And so this is a wonderful time to be planting seeds, setting your intentions for what you want to do. Like I said, if you're in the northern hemisphere, the energy is all rising. And so you're going to have that behind you, right? And so what do you want to have be your intentions, and how can it help to foster peace? Peace first inside of your own self. If you've been experiencing fear or overwhelm or disappointment or feeling distraught or uncertain about the future, right? All of that. How can you find peace inside of yourself first? Now, this is also an emotional energy. It's on the emotional solar plexus. It may take you some time to do that. But then you want to create peace in your relationships, because this is tribal energy. This is where our agreements are. The channel of the bargain or the channel of administration is all about our agreements and our contracts. And so how can we have peace in our agreements with others, both people who are close in, people who we have business dealings with, people who we have to just interact with in the world in different ways, whether that's somebody that you receive services from and you have to interact with them. How can you be at peace, and how can you foster peace in those relationships? So this is really important, because sometimes we think that we have agreements with people, but they never got spoken out loud. Or sometimes agreements get spoken out loud, but they don't get written down. And then one person walks away and thinks it means this thing, and another person walks away and they think it means this thing. And then you find out, oh gosh, we're actually not on the same page. So one of the things, while we've got this 3740 lit up, is to take a look at your agreements. Are your agreements conscious? Are they ones that everyone has at least verbally said yes to, if not written it down? Is it time to review any agreements? Is it time to upgrade an agreement? Is it time to exit an agreement, right? You want to end an agreement. Any of those things, but can you do it with peace? Can you do it with a spirit that you want to find outcomes that are mutually beneficial for everyone involved? So that's kind of what's happening with this new moon from a human design point of view. You'll also see that we've still got that 34, 35, 36 lit up, this major manifesting channel over here. Which I've talked about over the course of the month. And we've had the 35, 36 by different planets, but we've had this channel lit up all through the fall as well. So we're definitely getting a lot of celestial attention being placed on this manifesting, emotional manifestor energy. And remember, you just want to have that your emotional energy at the highest frequency, so that what you're bringing in is something that is going to really bring you joy, is going to bring you delight, is going to help expand your world. It's going to feel really great when it comes, as opposed to the alternative. Then the last thing I want to point out here is something that Pam Gregory, the great UK astrologer, said. She called it the Pisces Pileup, which I think is hilarious. But she's absolutely right. If you take a look at this image, this is for the human design mandala for the new moon. And you can see there right in the middle of the image is the 37, all right? And so the 37, if you look at the little pie mark where it is, right inside of there, you'll see the sun, which is the circle with the dot, that's the sun, and then the moon, the crescent moon. But then if you move down a little bit, you'll see that Saturn is in the 22, and you'll see that the North Node and Mercury are also in the 35. And then also Neptune's in the 25. So you can see all of those are there, whether they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 different planets right there in Pisces. Now, Neptune is right on the cusp there, right? Neptune is at the last degree of Pisces, about to move into Aries. But this is an interesting place where the gate 25 actually straddles Pisces, starts in Pisces, and ends in Aries. And so Neptune right now is navigating that change inside of the gate 25. And the gate 25, beautiful gate, love of spirit, right? But you can see here, we've got the sun, we've got the moon, we've got Saturn in the 22, who's really inviting us to surrender, Actually, Pam Gregory was talking about surrender. I don't think she was looking at a human design chart, but I love the way these themes will overlap with each other. Saturn is in the gate 22, surrender, which is in the knowing circuit. Again, it's individual circuitry, and it's where evolutionary impulse is running through the chart. And so here, the 22 is about surrendering to our higher guidance. It's surrendering to the quantum field, if you will, and what it is that spirit wants to bring to us. And then we've got Mercury and the North Node that are both lighting up that gate 36, which in traditional human design is known as crisis. Or exploration in quantum human design. And it's also an energy for helping us to break patterns of the past. So that can be really great. Mercury's giving us the ability to give voice to our explorations and the ways that we want to break our patterns in the past, so that we can step more into our creativity and step more into our intuition. And then the North Node, this is what we're leaning into, right? We're breathing into. We step into the North Node energies. They say in the second half of life, in second half of a people's life. So right now we're all leaning into that. So there's a lot happening here with this Pisces Pileup that's happening at the end of the month. Do get some of these dates on your calendar. Do pay attention to how this is working with you in your own human design chart. You can just take what's active that's happening in the transits, and you can see does it light up gates in your chart, and if so, what? And I know for me that the 4037 is going to, I don't have the 4037, right? But it's going to light up that gate for me. It's going to light up my will center, and it's going to light up my emotional solar plexus, which I have all open in my chart. So this particular transit is going to influence me a lot. So you want to go take a look at and compare with your chart with what you're seeing in with the transit. All right, everyone, really take good care of yourself, take good care of the people in your life. Live from your heart as much as you possibly can. Whenever you do that, you're going to raise the frequency of your emotional tone. Okay. So just if there's reactivity that's going on around you, if there are things that are happening in the outer world that are upsetting you, if there are things you don't understand, or you start to feel ungrounded or chaotic or any of those things, remember, you just want to come back inside. Right? You want to come back into your own center. You want to ground yourself by connecting to the earth, and you want to come into your heart as much as you can, and try to let any of that reactivity that's going on, all of those things out in the outer world, just kind of let them soften, and then see if you can hear that quiet voice inside of you, or if you can start to feel an inner direction coming through you. I actually, there's a woman in my Sovereign Sisterhood who, when she first came into the sisterhood, she was like, I don't think I have any intuition. I'm not really an intuitive person. And I said, well, try sitting quietly and just, have your cup of tea, go out into the forest if it works for you. It might, if it's too cold, that's not going to work, but, go out and just listen. Just go inside and get as quiet as you can and you listen. And she just reported recently that now she's starting to hear this little inner whisper of what's going on in there. Now, for those of you who feel like you don't know, is it my intuition or is it my ego, for example? Or is it my inner protector? The thing that I'll say is your true intuition will never speak to you in fear. It will never instill fear in you. It might say, "Oh, better not to do that," or "Oh, I wouldn't go with that person." Right? It might do that, but it's not going to generate fear, right, in you. That's always coming either from a trauma imprint from the past that got activated by something that's going on here, or by some real and present danger that's happening in your life. And so if none of that is going on, you should be able to hear that inner voice. It does take some practice, but as you saw already, we've got a lot going on in that knowing circuit, which is highly intuitive. And Pisces, of course, is very intuitive, right? That watery, intuitive, subconscious, right? And Pisces gives us the opportunity to bring things that have been in the unconscious more into the conscious realm so that we can understand them and we can work with them. So you've got a lot going for you here this month. I encourage you to make sure that you set aside a little bit of time on the 27th or the 28th, whatever is relevant for you, for where you are in the new world, and really plant some powerful intentions for yourself around what you want to have happen in this lunation. And I want to close with you today by sharing the Sabian symbol for this new moon. I actually really love the Sabian symbols, and the astrologers talk about them. So I'm starting to look at them too. So, the new moon is at 9 degrees of Pisces, and the Sabian symbol for that is a jockey spurs his horse, intent on outdistancing his rivals. And then the keynote for this is intense mobilization of energy and skill in the drive for success in any social performance affected by the competitive spirit. So that sounds like Mars turning forward and moving forward, right? And Mars will have done that just a few days before this new moon. Now, obviously, that's always true for that degree of Pisces. But just to dial this in here, is you may feel like you've been, while Mars has been retrograde, right? You've been marshaling your forces, marshaling your energy, maybe restoring yourself so that you can move forward here. So if you can just think of this as your opportunity, whatever competition means for you, whether that's you're competing with yourself to do something better than you ever have done before, right? Or you're inspiring yourself to take on something new and work with it, or you're really like saying to yourself, I'm going to take this to the next level, right? Though you can be working with that competitive spirit that way. And just see what you want to create for yourself during this next lunation and plant those seeds during that new moon. All right, my friends, many blessings, much love. I'll be back with a full March report very soon. Bye for now.